These days, you can't turn on the radio or the television or pick up a magazine or a newspaper without someone going on about stress. And if they're not directly talking about stress, they may be giving you an information it will likely to get you stressed. Examples: failing global economy, war and terrorism, murder, challenges in climate, and we can go on and on. Stress and what that can bring on Via Mia today.
The Via Mia show is sponsored by the following people.
Recording, rehearsal space, voiceovers, video editing in Westminster. For more information, fiascobros.com. Cuts and colors in Uptown Westminster. We welcome our stylist, George of Salon Caliente. For appointment, call 604-544-5104. Private investigations, security and alarm systems since 1972. For more information, call 604-251-2121. Makeup services for television, movie, and photo shoots. For more information, visit victoriawan.com.
We live in a stressful era, probably the most stressful period that humans ever experienced. That reflects on our health, on our relationship with the spouse, with friends, with coworkers. And here is my guest who has more to say. Director of Counseling, I forgot, Dawn Schooler, please correct me.
Director of Clinical Services. Yeah.
At Jericho.
That's right.
That is my problem. You know, remember all these letters and words.
Well, you're so stressed.
Yeah,
Clearly.
I guess.
Yes.
I guess I'm under stress.
Yes.
Well, before I made that mistake, I was talking about how stressful era we live in. Do you agree with that fact that this is probably the most stressful so far the humans experienced?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the number of jobs we have to do, we're supposed to be the best parents in the world. We're supposed to all be working outside the home to afford a house and lifestyle in the Lower Mainland. We're supposed to be fit, doing yoga, cooking gourmet meals, and I don't know how we pull it all off.
You know, I know, but you know, I've heard it before, like 10, 20 years ago, people say, this is the most stressful era. Is it ever been not stressful?
Well, I think if we go back even a few generations, even in our lifetime, you know, in my house we had one phone, and you know,
the
if
technology
somebody
may be behind it.
Sure, well, it's part of it certainly, but you know, if somebody phoned and you weren't home, you didn't even know it happened.
Yes.
Go back another generation and there wasn't a phone. What were people doing? We were sitting around, we were talking, we were having relationships. Our jobs were more working the land, and we got up with the sun and we went to bed with the moon. You know, the days were shorter, more connected. It was a simpler life.
Well, I don't think we're going to go back, right?
I doubt it, and I kind of hope not.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I didn't introduce you properly. Now we can learn more about Dawn if we go through her website. That'll be probably the first step, jerichocounselling.com. And before we go through your programs, because I really like how your program works, it sounds like we're going to be talking about stress only, which is not true. We will be talking much more than that about, and just briefly go into the stress. I think that is cause of a lot of illnesses,
Absolutely.
which cause companies billions.
Yes.
Isn't it true? Weakens our immune system, and leads to other things why people call you.
Yeah.
Your program, your clinic concentrates on Big Four, I remember. Can you
Yes.
please introduce that?
Sure. We deal a lot with anxiety, depression, addictions, and relationships.
Yeah.
And pretty much anything that someone's coming in, you know, to work on, can relate back to one of those 4 areas.
Yeah, well, why do people call you? Because they have problem in each group or one of them, and I guess being stressed brought them there. So I guess the stress may be behind all of them.
Well, the level of stress that people are working under today, you know, our nervous systems were not built to manage or function with this sustained level of activation. You know, we have a nervous system designed to keep us alive and safe from threats. These days, we're experiencing threats or agitation over, you know, multiple times a day, and you see it. People checking their Facebook, right? Again, we're going back to technology, but it's true. You know, parents up at 5 or 6 in the morning, getting children ready. One parent's out in the car on the way to work. I mean, the levels of stress are extraordinary, and this system, this nervous system, was not built for that level of activation and arousal for 12 or 14 hours a day, every day, for weeks at a time.
Yeah, I know.
Wasn't.
Well, this is what I was asking. It doesn't look like we're going to go back. This is not going to slow down unless we do something about it. And yeah, we talk about it a lot, but it doesn't look like that we do. Except very good. I'm very happy to have people like you. And I chose your particular clinic for a reason. We met before. We worked on the radio, and I had a really good experience with you. And before we step, because I'd like to talk about all those 4 groups, but before we do would you say that men and women deal differently with stress?
Yes, I think, you know, the male of our species is, again, they're sort of built to solve problems, and we socialize them to do that kind of in isolation. We make it pretty difficult for a man to reach out and say, hey, I need a bit of help. Yeah. So they tend to manage it quietly on their own. We sometimes see them act out around addiction stuff, aggression, anger, and ultimately it can go inside as well, and you'll see someone successfully suicide or attempt suicide. You go, what happened to that man? And you go, life happened to that fellow, and he didn't know how to reach out and get help. As women, we tend to be more social. We are more likely to talk to our girlfriends and our moms and sisters and aunties.
So we get it out of our system.
Yeah, and we get support, and it can be a little easier.
Even if we don't get any advice or anything, it's nice to get it out.
Yeah.
Right? And to have a professional to listen to you, that you're coming with some benefit out of that session is also very helpful.
Absolutely.
It's nice. I notice these days people don't like to open up in front of their friends and family for many reasons. It may be they don't want to be criticized. They don't want to be gossiped about, right? So this is another thing. So
well,
come
there's
to
this
somebody.
Culture of perfectionism.
I know.
These days, we're scared to say we're not good at something often.
Well, you're a professional. You're definitely neutral. You're not going to be laugh at him. Oh, yeah, this is what happened to you. So you. And now you even told me that your locations and everything are all expanded, so you are very flexible for most of the people.
Well, again, part of these busy lifestyles that people are having means that if they have time to reach out and get a bit of help for themselves, what do they need? They need the phones answered, they need the locations to be convenient, they need services in the evenings and the weekends when they're available, and that's what Jericho Counselling is trying to do, is to be really accessible and available with great locations. We answer our phones 7 days a week.
Nice.
We do all that.
Oh, that's great.
And we have that flexibility because of the number of therapists that are part of our clinic.
How many? You are the director. You're the founder. How many specialists you have now?
I'm terrible at this. I don't keep track, but we're in around the 22 therapists, I believe. Yes.
So there is always somebody for someone.
Yes, and it's another thing that I must say I'm most proud of just around Jericho Counselling, because we have wonderful cultural and language capacities. We serve people of all along the gender identity spectrum and the sexuality spectrum, and just as I want as many people to come to our website and see a face or hear a story from a therapist who go, I could talk to that person and get some help, and that's what we're trying to do.
Okay, so JerichoCounselling.com, that would be the place. And now let's step to the first one, which very much goes hand in hand with stress. It is depression.
Yes.
Those two probably definitely are. Depression. How depression can have so many faces, right?
Yes,
so
absolutely.
it can be light, it can be really bad. Now, when people come to you to tell you, I think I'm depressed, or I can do this because I'm depressed, isn't it amazing step already? They came to see you.
Yes, it's extraordinary. Do you know the number of people that make that call or send that email, and then they come in the next day, 2 or 3 days, sometimes longer in between, and they go, do you know what, I feel better already. Because they got so worked up about making that first call.
Yeah.
That's the hardest part. And then you make the call and you come in and you're like, I'm feeling a little better already just by starting this process.
Yeah, I would say it's a halfway of the battle winning,
Yeah.
right? So
Yes.
when you make the phone call, when you're sitting there, when you're already there. I don't know how it is, and hopefully I never will, but I met people, they said, I can't even leave the house for 3 days.
Yeah.
I can't even do this and do that. So that may be very difficult.
Yeah.
Of course, you have to approach all these people individually, even though you know how to deal with people that are depressed.
Yeah.
Everybody's dealing with the depression differently.
Well, and I think, again, one of the beautiful things about being part of a private practice clinic is that we're not told that you must complete this program in 3 sessions or 6 sessions, which is what a lot of folks get with their employee assistance program, et cetera. Sometimes we can do the work in that number of sessions, but a lot of times, you get in and you get some traction. People are learning some different skills, learning some ways to think about and interact with the challenges of their day differently, and they begin to feel better. Oftentimes, that sort of can be like putting a coat of paint on a rundown apartment, and just hoping to sell it. You just got to make it look good for a little bit. But then when you start looking, there's more things to do. So very often people begin to come back to life, and then they want to talk about, how do I have better relationships with my family, with my partner? How do I decide to look for another job that might be a better fit for me, that might reduce my stress and allow me to re-engage with my life. So, and we have that flexibility, which is beautiful.
Nice. And when you see that people are improving, getting out of it, does depression leave traces?
That's a great question. I think, and I won't have the source of this quote, but some person far smarter than I once said that, we all have wounds and scars, and very often we're strongest at the scar. Scar tissue literally is stronger than other skin, right? And so I think when people make their way through something like depression, they often are stronger and better for having had that experience. So that's how we like to think of it.
It makes them stronger.
Yeah.
Definitely when they overcome these things. Like you said, I thought that everything leaves some wounds, and there may be bigger, small traces.
Yeah.
And I don't know, is there such a thing like opposite of depression? What it would be? Would it be?
Well, I mean, we sort of think about depression and anxiety as coming together. There's also a form of depression called bipolar, which has a manic side to it. And that's the mania is this incredible sense of energy, a very robust sense of I can do anything, almost a Superman or Superwoman complex to it. It's probably the most debilitating form of depression because people can get themselves into all kinds of trouble, including huge credit card debt. They will go shopping and spending money, and it can be quite debilitating.
Well, I can see this is kind of wide spectrum of that question. We will carry on definitely after break.
The VMEA show is sponsored by the following people.
Recording, rehearsal space, voiceovers, video editing in Westminster. For more information, fiascobros.com. Cuts and colors in Uptown New Westminster. We welcome our stylist, George of Salon Caliente. For appointment, call 604-544-5104. Private investigations, security and alarm systems since 1972. For more information, call 604-251-2121. Makeup services for television, movie, and photo shoots. For more information, visit victoriawan.com.
So we have Director of Clinical Services at Jericho Counselling, Dawn Schooler, today. And we were talking about her website as well, if you would like to take a look, jerichocounselling.com. I interrupted you, but now I'm going to let you speak. We were talking about anxiety because that may be one of the traits of depression or stress, for example, right?
Absolutely.
It's nothing pleasant.
Well, again, people come in and they say, I'm struggling with anxiety. And you go, okay, well, let's look at what's going on in your life. And they give us, oh, well, I get up at 5:30 every morning and, well, what do you eat? Oh, I don't eat breakfast, I don't have time. And you go, okay, and then you go to work, right? And you're juggling all of this. And what do you do? Do you get a walk in? No, I don't have time for that. And do you have a good lunch? Well, actually, I rarely, maybe I grab like a Pop-Tart. and we go, well, maybe you might be struggling with anxiety because life is a little bit more full than it needs to be, than it should be. How do we begin to go back to basics? And we really look at it in a holistic way. And we explore, how are you feeding yourself and fueling your body? How are you sleeping? How's that going? And are you moving your body? So Eat, Sleep, Move. It's actually the title of a brilliant book if anyone wants to have a look at that. But a lot of this basic skills and helping people, again, build skills to say no and to set boundaries, self-care, putting self first. Again, we often don't do that very well.
That's absolutely correct. I'm glad you're saying it because saying no, that's really difficult for a lot of people.
Absolutely. Yeah. And again, we're put in a situation these days with, we're working more hours than we've ever worked before in North America. If I don't say yes to an addition in my work setting, someone else is going to, and what would that mean for me later? As parents, if I don't have my children in 3 different play groups and they go from school to the play group and then they're going to tutoring and I'm not a good parent. So yeah, it's tremendous.
Yeah, and I think that with anxiety, depression, all these things, I think the negative thinking or thoughts we are keeping in our mind. Yes. I wanted to talk very briefly with you, Dawn, about this because I was shocked when I had you on the radio 3 years ago. You told me something and completely blew me away when you told me how many thoughts our brain like an average generates.
Yeah, so the research shows somewhere between 50 and 75,000 thoughts a day is generated by the average adult brain. I'm not sure who sits around counting them, but aside from that,
that's a number.
If you imagine that,
no, I can't even imagine
you
that.
can't. And what tends to happen is that, again, based on our evolutionary biology, to keep myself alive, I'm actually programmed to scan for what's wrong so that I can fix it or save myself from it.
Eliminate the spam.
Exactly, right? And so then I'm trained to look for the negative, which is fine if I am in a wilderness environment where I might die at any moment. But these days, I'm not in that environment. And I'm still scanning for the negative. And then I end up paying attention to thoughts that aren't helpful at all. So we really teach people to get more conscious and aware of what thoughts they're paying attention to, because much of those thoughts, they're spam. They need to be deleted. And
easy to say, though, right?
Easy to say.
You've been trained to do that. And
that's right.
But it makes so much sense.
Yeah.
There's another thing I like, what you said to me once, that negative thoughts, we're keeping them in mind, and people tell you, well, stop thinking about it.
Yeah.
Stop thinking. How can you stop? Like, if you think about it, how can you stop? Like, no, okay, I'm not thinking anymore.
Right.
And you told me, you gave me amazing advice, not to stop, but
start.
Replace it. You told me to replace the thought. So, okay, I'm thinking about this. Okay, no, you go away because you're not good for me. And I'm looking for something that gives me a pleasure or some happiness or something nice memories.
Yeah. Well, again, I think it's very difficult to stop doing things, to stop a particular habit or stop a particular behavior. I think it's much easier to start doing something that's
else,
better for me.
Which
and
is
so that's what we
replacing.
coach our clients to do.
That was great, and I use that particular advice with other people. I'm very good giving other people advice, but I don't do it too much.
Aren't we all? Yeah, indeed.
So that is, because we have a lot of negative thoughts that don't really have to be, or thoughts that really have no space or no room there.
Well, and again, the challenge is to go, you know what, I actually am not in control of my thoughts. The thoughts are there. The brain is built to generate thoughts. It's doing its job. My more conscious job as a human is to go,
Select.
Which of those thoughts would I like to pay attention to? And we often don't know we have any control over that part. So we work with people to help them learn how to set their intention and say, I'd like to have a day where I'm mostly feeling happy and good about myself. Okay, then why don't I go scanning for thoughts that support that? And if it doesn't support that, I just kind of go, well, you're not that helpful to me right now. I'm looking for things that make me feel better. And so this is not to suggest that just skipping around being happy all the time is the goal, but it's at times that should be the goal. Let's make that the goal for part of the day.
That's great. It sounds, and I can see you are so trained that you work with yourself that way.
Yes.
Let's move to the third group if we can, and that is addiction. Do you think that many people, they have addiction to something that stress is behind again, or there might be different things?
There are many paths into addiction for sure. Stress is definitely one of them. Stress is certainly one that, addiction typically, in my way of understanding it, is about medication. I'm experiencing a great difficulty in my life. I've tried a lot of other things to figure it out. It's not working. And alcohol or drugs or some other mood-altering substance actually gives me a break from it. I'm medicating that. It's actually not a bad strategy. It can be a solution to begin with, and it generally it spirals into a problem for sure if you don't have some other strategies to deal with that.
What does normally work for people? They have some addiction. Do you think that a sit down and to be heard or talked would be more beneficial than medication, or the other way around, or is it really individual?
I think it's very individual, and I think in most cases, if I'm in a spot where I'm challenged to come up with an approach that fits everyone, I usually figure out a way to not have to answer that question because it's very individual. But for me, my approach is helping people build skills and strategies, coping strategies, separate from the addiction or whatever substance has been their only strategy to go to. And I want to help them build relationships, get some different kind of meaning in their life, some purpose, get some reasons not to fall into the bottom of a bottle of wine
Something
every
would
night.
make them feel more active or busy or occupied or make the life make sense, right?
And that's not to say that that's just, again, I'm perhaps making it sound simple. It is very complex and very difficult.
Of course, and you spend hours and days and weeks and months with people, and we have only a few minutes to do that. And I'd like to talk about each of them, so I'm going to be cutting it short if you don't mind. Towards the end, why don't we move to the last one of those big four, and it's a relationship. And just tell me why they don't work.
Well, again, I think this time in our existence, there's more pressure than ever to have great relationships. We are more connected than ever by media and social media and technology, and yet we're in the room with friends less than ever.
No communication.
All kinds of communication and no real, connection. So. There's a lot of pressure on relationships. It used to be women would gather, families would gather, and women would have great connections with one another in this room, and men would have great connections over here. And now we're trying to figure out, how do we be everything to each other, like couple to couple? And so there's new challenges all the time.
I think that what I experienced from people, they're seeking help from others instead of they would contribute and they do something. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
That they will sit down, not with you as a professional, but friends and think, okay, well, this is what happened to me. What do you think? Just help me.
Right.
And it's not, well, maybe it's now time for me to start to do something.
Yes. Well, there seems to be a culture of narcissism a little bit. People paying a little more attention to themselves to the exclusion of others, and I think we have to be a little bit selfish, or we're not here. But
we have to survive.
Yes, you know, but we've got to find a balance.
Yeah.
Exactly, and so it's the hardest thing we do. It's the most important thing we do, and it's also the most complex thing that we do is have these relationships.
Yeah. Well, Dawn, time with you went so far. I can't believe this. I wish I have more time for you. With all of you, you can find a time if you go to Dawn's website. She's got not only herself there, but group of people, very professional, JerichoCounselling.com. All information, contacts, location, everything is there. Hopefully you found this a short, at least that's how it felt, a short half hour, informative and beneficial like I did. Dawn, before you go, you need to leave your signature on this
fabulous.
cup, okay?
Fabulous.
Well, thank you again.
Thank you. It's a pleasure, always a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you again.
Thank you
to all of you who spent half hour with us, and we'll see you again next time.